The world was changing. Empires rose and fell like the tide, their fates often decided by ambition, greed, and the will of a few men with dreams too vast for their time. Around 480 BCE, two mighty powers stood at the edge of history: the sprawling Persian Empire, led by King Xerxes, whose ambition was as endless as the desert sands of his homeland, and the fiercely independent Greek city-states, a patchwork of cultures and ideologies, bound together by a shared determination to remain free. For decades, the Persian kings had looked westward, eyeing the Greek lands with a mixture of disdain and desire. The first Persian invasion had failed, but Xerxes was determined not to repeat his father's mistakes. He amassed one of the largest armies the world had ever seen, a force that stretched from the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of Persia, bringing together soldiers from every corner of his empire. The numbers were staggering: hundreds of thousands of infantry, tens of thousands of cavalry, and a fleet that could darken the horizon. But Greece was not unprepared. The city-states, often fractured by rivalry and pride, had realized the enormity of the threat they faced. Leaders like King Leonidas of Sparta and Themistocles of Athens began rallying their forces, understanding that this would be a battle not only for land but for the very soul of their civilization. They knew that if the Persian tide reached the heart of Greece, freedom would be washed away. The tension was palpable. Spy networks moved quietly in the shadows. Messages raced through hidden channels. Both sides prepared not only their soldiers but their minds for the clash that was coming. Diplomats tried to sway alliances, but in the end, no negotiation could prevent what was coming. In this section, we explore the political, cultural, and military build-up leading to one of the most epic confrontations in history. The Persian Empire believed it was unstoppable, its wealth and size a guarantee of victory. The Greeks, in contrast, had something no army could buy: unyielding resolve, unity born from shared survival, and leaders who understood that the moment demanded courage above all. The stage was set. The world waited with bated breath. Soon, the whispers of strategy would be replaced by the roar of war. Empires would tremble, heroes would rise, and history would be written in blood. As Xerxes' army marched westward, the Greek city-states had to decide how to confront an overwhelming foe. Sparta, renowned for its warriors and discipline, offered to lead a defensive coalition. Leonidas, a king whose very name inspired loyalty, gathered a small force of elite soldiers, the famous 300 Spartans, to hold a crucial pass at Thermopylae. Though vastly outnumbered, they understood the geography gave them an advantage, turning a narrow mountain pass into a formidable choke point. Meanwhile, Athens, wealthy and strategically minded, invested heavily in its naval power. Themistocles, the brilliant strategist, argued that the Persian fleet could be defeated at sea, where maneuverability and tactics mattered more than sheer numbers. Ships were constructed, crews trained, and alliances forged with smaller city-states. Every citizen understood that this war was not just for kings or generals, but for families, homes, and the future of their culture. Xerxes, confident and ambitious, expected the Greeks to surrender quickly. Messages of intimidation and offers of wealth were sent, but the Greeks refused. Pride, freedom, and courage proved more valuable than gold. The Persian forces, massive and diverse, faced logistical challenges. Feeding and moving such a vast army required meticulous planning, yet Xerxes' confidence never wavered. The first encounter came at Thermopylae. The Spartans, with their allies, faced a force tens of times their size. The narrow pass neutralized some of the Persian advantage. Day after day, the Greeks held their ground against waves of attacks. History remembers the bravery of these warriors, their shields interlocking, their spears striking in unison, forming a wall no enemy could penetrate easily. Meanwhile, the naval confrontation loomed. Themistocles prepared for a decisive battle at Salamis, understanding that controlling the sea lanes could prevent the Persian army from sustaining itself. Secret messages, clever ruses, and daring strategies were employed to lure the Persian fleet into narrow waters where their numbers counted for less. In this section, we delve into the preparation, the strategies, and the human stories behind the monumental clash. The soldiers were not just fighters, they were sons, fathers, and citizens carrying the weight of their world on their shoulders. The stage was nearly set for a battle that would be remembered for millennia. The first clash was brutal. At Thermopylae, the Spartans' discipline and courage slowed the Persian advance. Waves of soldiers fell against their shields, arrows rained down, and yet the Greeks stood firm. Xerxes watched from a distance, confident that eventually, numbers would prevail. And eventually, betrayal came. A local guide revealed a hidden path to the Persians, allowing them to flank the Greeks. Leonidas, understanding the inevitability, sent away most of the allies, remaining with his 300 Spartans and a few hundred loyal soldiers to cover their retreat. Their stand became legendary, a symbol of courage against impossible odds. At sea, Themistocles' strategy came to fruition. The Persian fleet, lured into the narrow straits of Salamis, struggled to maneuver. Greek triremes struck with precision, ramming and sinking enemy vessels. The tide of battle turned. Xerxes' navy, once thought invincible, faced catastrophic losses. Morale faltered. Supplies dwindled. For the first time, the Persian king realized that victory would not be easy. The battles tested human endurance, ingenuity, and spirit. Soldiers faced exhaustion, hunger, and fear, yet their determination never wavered. Ancient writers later described the sound of war as deafening: the clash of swords, the cries of men, the pounding of hooves, and the relentless rhythm of the sea against the ships. Each encounter was a mixture of strategy, chaos, and sheer bravery. As the war unfolded, alliances shifted, and cunning became as valuable as strength. Leaders like Leonidas and Themistocles emerged not merely as commanders but as legends, their decisions influencing the outcome of history. Even Xerxes, though frustrated by setbacks, displayed leadership in rallying his troops and adapting to unforeseen challenges. This section captures the heat of battle, the heroism, the despair, and the strategic brilliance that made these confrontations unforgettable. The outcome was uncertain until the final moments, and every action had consequences that would echo through time. The Persian defeat at Salamis, combined with the heroic resistance at Thermopylae, marked a turning point in the war. Xerxes retreated, leaving behind portions of his army. The Greek city-states, battered but victorious, had preserved their independence and set the stage for future cultural flourishing. Democracy, philosophy, art, and science would thrive because a small coalition of determined humans stood against overwhelming odds. The legacy of these battles extends far beyond the military victories. The courage of the Spartans inspired generations. The strategy of Themistocles influenced naval warfare for centuries. The Persian Empire, though still powerful, learned that ambition alone could not conquer unity and determination. Historians continue to study these events for lessons in leadership, strategy, and human endurance. Monuments were erected, stories passed down through generations, and the tales of bravery became part of cultural memory. The impact of the war was felt not only in political terms but also in shaping the identity of civilizations. The battle that shook empires reminds us that history is not written by numbers alone. The spirit of people, their will to protect their homes and values, can alter the course of empires. Modern audiences look back not only to admire strategy but to understand courage, resilience, and sacrifice.